बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी यशोधनन्दन व्रजनरञ्जन यशोधनन्दन व्रजनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारी वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंजा बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंजा बिहारी जय राधा माधव राधा माधव राधे जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा सुभद्रमायी जय सुदर्शना जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव। श्री राधा माधव जी की जय। जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा माई की जय। Go ahead.
Am I
Sorry,
supposed to read?
I joined. I missed that Aarti.
Okay,
Radha.
Sindhu Mataji will go on with the prayers.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापाद कमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवं च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सवधूतं प्रजिना सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य
परिजन सहितम
परिजन सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा।
Thank you. Is there anyone who's not sung the Narsimha Aarti so far? All of you have sung. You have not sung, Prabhu? Then go ahead. Yeah.
नमस्ते नरसिंहाय प्रह्लादलाददायिने नमस्ते नरसिंहाय प्रह्लादलाददायिने हिरण्यकाशीपूर्वक्षः शीलटङ्कानखालाये इतो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा इतो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा पाहे नरसिंहा हृदये नरसिंहा नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये पाहे नरसिंहा हृदये नरसिंहा नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये तव करकमलवरेणाखाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गां दलिता हिरण्यकशिपूतनुभृङ्गाम् केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव करकमलवरेणाखाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गां दलिता हिरण्यकशिपू तनुभृङ्गाम् केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय विघ्न विनाश जय नरसिंहदेव विघ्न विनाश जय नरसिंहदेव जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंतादेव लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंतादेव जय भक्तवत्सला जय नरहरि भक्तवत्सला जय नरहरि जय प्रह्लाद महाराज जय प्रह्लाद महाराज प्रह्लाद महाराज जय प्रह्लाद महाराज हरे कृष्णा माता जी
Are you comfortable with the Bija Mantra, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji. 11 times or 3 times?
3 times.
उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णुं ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्युं नमाम्यहम् ॐ उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णुं ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्युं नमाम्यहम् ॐ उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णुं ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्युं नमाम्यहम्
Jai.
हरे कृष्ण माताजी
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Does anyone want to summarize what was discussed in the last class? What was the high topic that we discussed? Main topic? Anyone remembers? What was discussed in terms of karma kanda activities?
Uh, yeah, Krishna Mata, Hare Krishna Mata ji.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna now resolves the confusion of Arjuna when his fourth confusion was like unwanted population. So
Not unwanted, unwanted population as a result of the destruction of religious and
family
family
tradition.
traditions. Okay, because of that, Varna Sankara and all other things will happen. But that itself is not the main issue. The overall issue is the family traditions are destroyed.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. And Krishna says no work binds him, but he works so that people can, because people always follow
Shreshtas.
Shreshtas. So that's
Mhm.
why he does work so that people can follow him.
Mhm.
He gives an example of Janak Maharaj. that
Mm.
people follow him because he does. Uh, he's a great. He's a Shrestha. That's why.
Yes. He also gives example of himself, Krishna himself, how he has no duties to do. Still, he's doing his prescribed duties because if he does not do it, then all the commoners will follow in line with him and say, because Krishna is not doing his duties, then, and because Arjuna is not doing their duties, then even we will not do our karma. So, prescribed duties, he says, must be done. Okay. Well, nicely summarized, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Mm, what else did we discuss? So, Krishna is talking specifically after saying that prescribed duties must be done. He also says for the liberated soul, however, there's no prescribed duties because everything transcends prescribed duties. Prescribed duties are material duties, okay, which comes from Varnashrama Dharma. So once a person becomes self-realized, then he transcends his prescribed duties also, and then his duties becomes purely in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so that's something that we need to remember. And same at the same breath, Krishna is also saying, but if there are people who are following fruitive activities, do not disturb them, do not unsettle them. Let them continue doing their duties. It's better that they at least do their prescribed duties or work for fruitive results than not working at all. So let them work. Don't unsettle them, is what Krishna is saying. Okay, and yeah. So this is where we stopped yesterday, day before yesterday, verse 30. Oh, Arjuna, surrender all your work unto me, and with full knowledge of me, without desire for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy. That is Vigata Jwara. Fight. So Krishna is again telling him that give up all your lethargy. Lethargy, because how lethargy comes? Because when people say don't get attached to the fruitive results, then naturally lethargy comes. But most people work because there's some glory, some after effects of doing that work. But if somebody says, you work for 10 years, but there's no salary, see how instantly the motivation to work goes off, right? Similarly, while performing a prescribed duties must be done because that's what the shastra says. But if Krishna is also saying that don't get attached to the results of your work, in that case lethargy will come instantly. What's the result of doing this work? Nobody will recognize me, nobody will tell that Jayanthi Mataji did this work. So if my name is not going to be called up in a forum, then what is the motivation for me to do some my prescribed duties? So Krishna is warning us about this Vigata Jwara or lethargy, and he's saying, give up all desire for profit, claim of proprietorship, give up this lethargy and fight. Pick up your arrows and fight. Okay, that's only way to work in Krishna consciousness. Okay, let's go to verse 31. Is there any questions on anything that was discussed till verse 30? No questions? Okay, let's go to verse 31.
Yes, Mataji.
I need someone to keep a track eye on the list of readers today and keep prompting them if they're not reading. Who will take up the responsibility? Sumit Prabhu, can you do that?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, keep an eye on your phone. You're the first reader, so you can go ahead.
Yeah. ये मम्मत ये मम्मतम् इदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवा श्रद्धावन्तो नश्यन्ते मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः. Translation: those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Hare Krishna.
Those people who execute their duties according to my injunction. And how does Krishna say? Ye me matham idam nityam. He says, one who follows my injunctions, nityam. It's not that one day I'll follow, one day I'm feeling lethargic, I'll not follow today. I'll take a break from Krishna's scriptures. No. Whatever Krishna is saying, whatever his injunctions are, must be followed nityam. Okay? Anutishtanti manavaha. Shraddhavanto is meaning with faith, and anasuyanto, without envy. Okay, muchyante tepi karma bihi. So this is how his instructions, Krishna's instructions should be followed. He says it should be followed faithfully, without envy, and should be followed every day, nityam. Okay, but if you follow Krishna's injunctions some days you don't follow, then it becomes karma kanda, because then you're following his injunctions for some benefit or some kind of after effects. But if one who does not care for these fruitive results will follow these injunctions every day, whether they are they give him glory or in glory, doesn't matter, right? They follow it without fail, with full faith. Okay, so duties executed. Krishna is saying, duties executed according to my injunctions, follow faithfully without envy, become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. So envious people will misrepresent what Krishna is saying, whatever Krishna's injunctions are, envious people will misrepresent it. Some people might say, can't I just read any version of Bhagavad Gita, because all versions of Bhagavad Gita is coming from Krishna itself, right? So what's wrong? Why should I read the version of Bhagavad Gita that ISKCON is propagating versus some other versions of Bhagavad Gita? But we should understand that Bhagavad Gita is not just Krishna's word. Krishna is the Adi Guru. Now, who is translating these words and bringing it to us? Our Guru Parampara, our Acharyas, right? So, whenever you read Bhagavad Gita, another important part of Bhagavad Gita is the purports of the Bhagavad Gita, which is also reflects the mood of the Acharya. Our version of Bhagavad Gita that we read is written by Srila Prabhupada. The purports are from Srila Prabhupada. The translation is from Srila Prabhupada. So you can understand the mood of our Acharya when you read these purports, right? He's telling us instructively how to understand these verses, right? Which is why we must read Bhagavad Gita with purpose. The more than understanding the shlokas, it's not important in how nicely you recite the shlokas. What is important is how nicely you understand the meaning of the purports, not even shlokas. Okay, so you should understand what the guru is telling, right? Even if you're not able to speak Sanskrit fluently, even if you're not able to understand and recite the shlokas fluently, that will come to you in time. But more important, as a first priority, you should understand the meaning of the purpose. Okay, and that's how we follow the instructions of Krishna via the spiritual master, which is why we must read Bhagavad Gita with purpose. Okay, not just the verses, and it should be read from a authorized guru, not just any philosophers. You might find different kinds of in Krishna consciousness, especially, you'll find different kind of devotees, right? All of them claim to be devotees of Krishna, but some of them are following, saying that Krishna is Maya, right? He does not have a spiritual body. He's just a material person. They say he's Maya, or he doesn't have a form. And some others say he's void, shunyavadi, right? So there are different people who say different things about Krishna, but only a authorized guru will give us the real understanding of Krishna's purpose. He'll tell how to explain how Krishna is Brahman, how he's Paramatma, how he's Bhagwan. And when we know this aspect of Krishna, and when we understand it through the purpose, then we understand that yes, this is how we understand Krishna's personality, right? So only a spiritual guru will tell us, Krishna is, he is Brahman, but above and beyond, he's also Paramatma, is existing in all of us. And beyond that, he has a personal form of Shama Sundara. And understanding all three aspects of Krishna is as important. It's not that a authorized guru will say Krishna is just Brahman, he's just a effulgence, there's no body. That is Mayavada. And then Gyanis will say that he is just the Paramatma, he exists everywhere, right? So that's Jnanavada, but they're still not giving a full picture. But if you're reading these other versions of Bhagavad Gita, they'll stop explaining Bhagavad Gita uh, as per their understanding of Krishna, right? But when you read the Bhagavad Gita from a authorized spiritual master, then he gives a full understanding of Krishna. And this is how we understand that such people who represent Krishna incompletely or inaccurately, they are envious of Krishna, right? And we should avoid reading Bhagavad Gita from, or injunctions of Bhagavad Gita from such people. Okay, so if you read the purports of Srila Prabhupada, you will see how Krishna, though he's speaking about Karma Yoga in the initial few chapters. But Srila Prabhupada, while explaining Karma Yoga, he's also saying karma can take you to bhakti, right? He eventually um, puts the purpose in such a way that how through karma yoga you can go towards bhakti. Similarly, when he's talking about dhyana yoga after this, even that he'll say how from dhyana yoga you can go to bhakti. And then jnana yoga, again, he shows how from jnana yoga he goes to bhakti. So, in each topic he is bringing up, Srila Prabhupada is saying how through each form of yoga one can go to bhakti yoga. And why is Srila Prabhupada bringing bhakti into each aspect of Bhagavad Gita? Because remember, we have all kinds of people. Most people have very limited interest in reading Bhagavad Gita. Some might read till Karma Yoga saying, work is worship, this is all I want to know, right? So for people who will stop reading Bhagavad Gita after Karma Yoga, Srila Prabhupada is instantly bringing Bhakti Yoga there so that through karma yoga people can understand how to pursue bhakti yoga. Their knowledge is complete just by understanding it in full completeness. So our acharya is very merciful in that way, saying if you're only interested in bhakti, karma yoga, then understand how to follow bhakti yoga through karma yoga. That way your life will be perfect. So this is how our acharya thinks as well, right? So they want us to make the most of whatever effort we put. Whatever effort we put, let's get the most spiritual benefit, which is also why we have the four regulative principles, right? What is the reason why we have these four regulative principles? Because this is the easiest way to circumvent Kali Yuga, the quickest and the easiest way, by not meat eating, not gambling, not uh, illicit relation, and no intoxication. This is the easiest way to overcome the effects of Kali Yuga, the ugra karma that one can easily take up because of Kali Yuga. But if you're calming your mind by following these four regulative principles, then it's easier to overcome the effects of Kali Yuga. So our acharyas are so merciful that they're giving us quick tricks and trips to overcome all these side effects of Kali Yuga by giving us an authorized process. For people who are following any kind of upper sampradaya, they need to know that, uh, if you're following other gurus, Mayavadis and Shunyavadis, you need to know that some point you're losing the full benefit of having this human life by following this ill philosophers who are not talking the absolute truth or do not have the complete knowledge to give the right kind of philosophy, right? Many a times this Vaishnava philosophy might seem very, very difficult to follow. It becomes very, because every time we talk, we speak of austerities, penances, fasting. So, what is a joy? How do I enjoy life? Many people might say, what's the use of such a life if I can't even enjoy? But we should remember this human life is not there for enjoyment, right? This human life is like a prison. You can think of it like a prison. If there's a person who's killed another person, has committed some sins and is put to jail, he doesn't go to the jail thinking, now I'll enjoy in the prison, right? Similarly, we are here because of our past sins. We have got this body, human form or animal form, whatever form we have, because of our past sins. Right? If we had not committed, if we didn't have such a big backlog of sins, we would have never come to this material life. So while you are in this material life, it's important to understand how important this austerity sacrifices are. Even if you're fasting two times in a month, you're dissolving a lot of sins by that process because you're engaging your mind and senses in Krishna consciousness. You're trying to curtail your senses that way. You're practicing the process of curtailing your senses. So that is very important. Okay, so remember, material life is not for enjoyment. It is actually to practice sacrifices. Okay, so we should be very careful on which sampradaya you're associating with. And if you're associating with any sampradaya which is outside these four Vaishnava sampradayas, then you should know that we are misusing this human life, because ultimately, after following these other upper sampradayas, if you ultimately get to know that, okay, everything I did because somebody told me to do this, but I was not following the right sampradaya, and now because of that, I'm going to see a downfall from human life. So that's going to be a very sad situation, right? So we should be very careful which sampradaya you're following, whose authority you're following. Is your guru for giving the right, complete instructions? Okay, and fortunately, we are all associated with Srila Prabhupada through his books, and because of that, we are now seeing the absolute philosophy with no sugar coating, no manipulation of words. Srila Prabhupada is the most outward, say it as it is kind of person. There's no sugarcoating in anything that he says. So he's that's the position of the guru as well, because the guru tells things that is absolutely important for the soul to go back to Krishna, right? And that is how a guru is non-envious of Krishna, because he doesn't want to replace Krishna. He's not the blockage between the disciple and Krishna. He's the person who's connecting Krishna and the disciple. He's the in between bond, right? So that's how Krishna, a guru, is very important in everybody's life, so that they can understand the injunctions of Krishna from a person who's not envious or has no sense of proprietorship. My disciples, they follow my injunctions versus Krishna's injunctions. That should not be the mood. But unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, like I mentioned in the last class as well, we inherently have some degree of atheism within us, because we are too exposed to Mayavada philosophy, which preaches that every god is equal, everybody is equal, right? So atheism is inbuilt from us in our childhood. So it's impossible for somebody to completely accept that Krishna is the supreme. There's nobody second to him, right? So we somehow end up treating Krishna equal to all demigods. Now that is also a form of atheism or being envious, right? So which is why the only way to overcome this envy towards Krishna is by blindly following a authorized spiritual master. Okay, and trying to reduce our association with people or organizations who are taking us into the more atheistic tendencies, right? Now, one should learn from the verse is saying that one should learn from person who has complete faith, right? What is this complete faith? Complete faith is, you may or may not understand what is going on, but you still have faith. But if somebody tells you that a 7-year-old boy lifted Govardhana on his left small finger, you have faith that Krishna can do it, right? There's a story of the Brahmana and a cobbler man. The Brahmana did not believe that Krishna can pass through the eye of the needle. The whole elephant can pass through the eye of the needle if Krishna passes it. He said, how can elephant pass through the eye of the needle? But when the same cobbler heard it, he said, if Krishna wants, he can do anything. If he can make this small seed grow into such a big tree, and from that tree, again, the seeds are falling and they also grow into such a big tree. So why not? He can do whatever he wants. So that's the kind of faith that Krishna, if he wants, he will do anything, right? We should follow Krishna with such kind of faith. There are many speakers today, and unfortunately, we live in an age where everybody has an opinion on spiritual life, right? And many people very openly, even Hindus themselves, when we talk about Ramayana and Mahabharata, they refer to Ramayana and Mahabharata as mythology, right? What does mythology mean? Anybody knows the meaning of mythology?
Stories, Mataji. Stories.
Stories?
Created.
Something that is a myth, a fiction, not true, right? There's no proof that it's actually a valid itihasa. We call it as a itihasa, but people call it as a myth, right? Myth means it's not true. It could be, it could be an imagination, somebody's imagination. Somebody imagined something and wrote Ramayana, Mahabharata. So many people in modern age, including Hindus, call these itihasas as mythologies, because they cannot perceive that such a person existed, like Krishna existed, and he did all these feats, right? Killing so many demons at such a tender age, lifting Govardhana, because they are faithless. They're envious people, right? And sometimes, if they don't understand certain pastimes of Krishna, they'll say that maybe, maybe it's not true. How can a small boy actually do all these things? Maybe it is because it's a mythology, then all these pastimes can happen. Otherwise, in reality, all these things cannot happen. There's actually one speaker called Devdutt Patnaik, if you have heard about him. many people like his online podcasts. Right, he does many podcasts on Indian stories like Ramayana and Mahabharata, and in his podcasts or books, he openly claims that all these Ramayana, Mahabharata are mythology because he cannot understand, and he because he cannot understand certain things, he gives his own interpretations to these stories. Right, and many people like to listen to these kind of videos because they are able to relate to what he's saying. Of course, Krishna as a boy cannot lift Govardhan. Maybe he took protection instead of lifting the Govardhan. Maybe he was standing on Govardhan and taking protection under a tree. These are the kind of interpretations they come up with. So if you are listening to fools like this, do yourself a favor and stop listening to such people. Right? Of course, such people are becoming very famous in current times, because there are many people who think that at least he has an understanding, right?
अभी
It's
तक
okay. Sorry. So discussions such as that, like Devdutt Patnaik, who's calls such Ramayana and Mahabharata stories of Krishna as mythology, maybe people who have a very less exposure to scriptures, they might find his talks as intellectual and interesting. But for devotees of the Lord who are already reading scriptures, to have association with such people will only reduce your faith. Right, so don't fall prey to such lower forms of entertainment. This is nothing more than entertainment. Okay, so as devotees of the Lord, we should be very careful on who you're listening to, who you're associating with, even if it's in the form of books or online videos, or even that is called association. So be very careful on who you're associating with. And anybody who's positioning the question or position of Krishna, questioning the position of Krishna, we should avoid the association completely unless we are able to convince them, because there are many people who keep challenging for debates, but if you're able to convince them, then that is great. But if you're not able to convince them, then you need to disassociate with such people. Right, because the Shastra says that if someone is blaspheming the Lord, the main duty of a devotee is to kill the person. Right, but if you cannot kill, at least try to overrule his philosophy in the form of a debate. Right, and if you cannot do that, at least then walk away. Right, don't just sit and listen and do nothing. That is what Srimad Bhagavatam says. In fact, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 4, verse 17, I'll see if I can bring it up. Yeah. Can someone read this?
Yeah, Mataji.
Go ahead.
Sati continue, if one hears an irresponsible person blaspheme the master and the controller of religion, one should block his ears and go away if unable to punish him. But if one is able to kill, then one should be forced cut out the
Blasphemous.
blasphemer's tongue and kill the offender, and after that one should give up his own life.
Hmm. Why give up their own life? Because your ear was exposed to such kind of talks, right? So even to be able to listen to such a person is as good as death for a devotee. So we should be very careful as a devotee of the Lord to even expose ourselves to such kind of talks from people who are envious, who are faithless. This should be avoided. But overall, Krishna in this verse is telling us that his injunction should be followed with faith, without envy, free from attachment to fruitive results, and should be followed nityam, every day, without cessation. Every moment of your living breath, you should follow his injunctions. Okay, let's read verse 32.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
You said something about 4 regulative principles about Kali Yuga, Mataji. What? It just
Okay, so Kali Yuga, when Kali Purusha was beating the cow and the bull, cow represents dharma and bull was earth. Sorry, cow represents earth and the bull was religion, right? So Parikshit Maharaj stopped him at that time and defeated him, right? So at that point, Kali asked he was just about to punish him. And Kali said, how can you punish me? Because this is Kali Yuga. I'm supposed to be living in this time. But because of your reign, Parishit Maharaj's reign, I'm not able to sustain. So how will I spread Kali Yuga if Parishit Maharaj continues to control everything so diligently? So which is why um, uh, Parikshit Maharaj gave a boon to Kali that you can live in four places, right? Where there is gambling, where there is illicit relation, intoxication, and where there is meat eating. Okay, so Kali Purusha lives in these places. And this is why we have this four regulative principles as well, where we are avoiding the influence Kali Purusha. Even when you are chanting the holy name of the Lord, when the Lord is dancing on your mouth, tongue all the time, and you're eating prasadam without cessation, any food that you're eating is Krishna Prasada. And when you're following these four regulative principles, which is slowly cleansing yourself, purifying you internally. Okay, chanting is to remove sins. The four regulative is the cleansing process, right? The four regulative principles cleanses us so we can do Sankirtana Yagna. Whenever, what's the requirement to sit in a Yagna? You need to be purified to be sitting in a Yagna. And to do Sankirtana Yagna, the process of purification is through following the four regulative principles. Okay, so when you follow the four regulative principles, you are ready to do Sankirtana Yagna. You sit in that Yagna and perform the Yagna. So this is how the advance of Kali Purusha is also stalled that way.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Verse 32.
3.32 एत्वेतद् अभ्यसूयन्तो नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतं सर्वज्ञानविमूढस्तान् विद्धि नष्टानचेतसः. Translation: But those who, out of envy, disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection.
So, read the purport as well, Mataji.
Purport: The flaw of not being Krishna conscious is clearly stated herein, as there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head. So there is certainly punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self and of the Supreme Brahman, Paramatma, and the personality of Godhead due to a vacant heart. Therefore, there is no hope of perfection of life for him.
So Krishna is also telling, why do we disregard his injunctions? Because out of envy, he says. Envy he's pointing out over here, right? And being envy is the flaw that Krishna is warning us about here, right? And why is Krishna talking about being envious in specific? Because this is one quality that has brought us down to material world in the first place. We are all spiritual beings to begin with, but because of our envious disposition towards Krishna, we have now come to this material world. If you are not connected to the authorized spiritual master, and then this punishment of staying in the material world continues. And the punishment is Krishna of being envious towards Krishna we become bereft of knowledge. We become befooled and ruined in our endeavors for perfection. Okay, so being envious is something Krishna is warning us about. Verse 33.
सदृशं चेष्टते स्वस्य प्रकृतेर्ज्ञानवानपि प्रकृतिं यान्ति भूतानि निग्रह किं करिष्यति. Translation: Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish?
Hare Krishna. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from three modes of material nature. Before I explain this, Jayalakshmi Mataji, can you please take attendance for today? I think Vidya Mataji is not online today.
Okay, Mataji. Yeah,
I'm here,
sure.
Mataji.
Oh, you're there? Okay, okay. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't notice.
I joined a little
Okay.
late, Mataji. Sorry.
Okay. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature is acquired from the three modes. Okay. So, what is this following the own nature, and what can repression? So, there is Mahamaya and Yoga Maya. We have done small mini reference to you, Mahamaya and Yoga Maya, quite often in our sermons over here. So, both are forms of Mother, energies of Mother Durga. Okay. While Mahamaya keeps us entangled in material life, Yoga Maya is engaged in pastimes of Krishna. Okay. So devotees, the relation between Krishna and his devotees, that is all managed by Yoga Maya. So now, how does Mahamaya control material life? By the three modes of material nature, which is Sattva Guna, Rajaguna, and Tamoguna. Okay. In Sattva Guna, we behave as per the scriptures. We follow rules and regulations. While in Rajoguna, we are driven by passion, by Rajasic nature, right? Here, it is mostly about I, me, myself. If it's not a pleasurable activity for I, me, and there's no benefit coming from this activity for me, then I'll be not interested in that activity. It's a waste of time. So, um, uh, all actions in Rajaguna, the main priority is material desires. Okay. And then finally, the third material nature, which is Tamoguna, we are acting out of ignorance. Okay. And this is the opposite of Sattva Guna. While Sattva Guna, you follow rules and regulations, you follow the scriptures. In Tamoguna, we have no interest in scriptures. We are not interested in any kind of scriptural knowledge. We have no regard for the scriptures, and we act in a way that is harmful to self or the people around us. Okay. So when one is not surrendered to Krishna, then these three modes of material nature take control. So let's read the purport. Read from here.
Academically, one may be very learned, but because of his long association with material nature, he is in bondage. Krishna consciousness helps one to get out of the material entanglement, even though one may be engaged in his prescribed duties in terms of material existence. Therefore, without being fully in Krishna consciousness, one should not give up his occupational duties. No one should suddenly give up his prescribed duties and become a so called yogi or transcendentalist artificially. It is better to be situated in one's position and try to attain Krishna consciousness under superior training. Thus, one may be freed from clutches of Krishna's Maya.
Maya, Krishna's Maya. So it's impossible to repress acting in the three modes. We have to act as per the three modes. If you're not surrendered to Krishna, then uh, Mahamaya takes control and she makes us act like these puppets on strings. We are acting in Rajaguna, Tamaguna, or Sattva based on her desires. Okay. So the only way to suppress these three modes is by acting in Krishna conscious. Otherwise, even if you renunciate all activities, they are still acting in these three modes because our mind is thinking based on these three modes. So whichever guna is prominent at that time, we will be acting as per that. Okay. Now we'll understand these three modes of material nature a little better in much detail, maybe when we head to the last six chapters of Bhagavad Gita, because those chapters go into much detail into the three modes of material nature. Here I'm just giving you indications on what these three modes of material nature are. Okay, let's go to verse 34.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I have
Hare
a
Krishna.
doubt.
Yes, Mataji.
You said Yoga Maya and Mahamaya, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Yoga Maya is good, but that's also Maya.
Yoga, yes, both. Maya means covering, right?
Okay.
It's a covering. It's not good or bad. It's on how you utilize the energy, right? The Srila Prabhupada gives this like this car heater or AC. The same AC and can be a cooler or it can be a heater, right? So you shift gears, change conditions, modes, you becomes cool air, or if you change temperature, it becomes hot air. So same Maya, if you're acting under directions of Krishna, becomes Yoga Maya,
Okay,
right?
so that is
And if
Krishna
you're
consciousness.
yes, and if you're
Okay.
acting against against Krishna's injunctions, then it becomes Mahamaya.
Oh,
Okay.
oh,
And
Hare
within
Krishna.
Yoga Maya, a small potency called Hladini Shakti, which is Radharani herself. Within Yoga Maya, Hladini Shakti or Hladini is Radharani, which is a pleasure potency of Krishna. So Yoga Maya is all guides all the activities, all the appearances, and all the forms of Krishna. Whenever he comes, with all his different pastimes are guided by Yoga Maya. In that, any activity with Radha Rani is Ladini Shakti. Okay, so
Oh,
that's even more concrete form of Yoga Maya, his potencies like that.
oh. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Next.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
34 इन्द्रियासेन्द्रियास्यार्थे रागद्वेषो व्यवस्थितौ तयोर्नावशमागस्ते सौहस्य परिपन्थिनौ. Translation. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization.
So there are principles of to regulate attachment. So why is Krishna saying to regulate attachment over here? Because he said give up all sense of attachment before. So what is Krishna saying over here? To regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the sense and their objects. Okay. So Krishna is saying don't be too attached, not to have disgust or aversion towards sense and its objects. Because even just like we discussed Mahamaya and Yoga Maya. It's the same covering. Depending on who you surrender to, it can take you, be Yoga Maya or it can be Mahamaya. Similarly, your sense and the sense objects, depending on how you're using your senses or sense objects, it can take you to Krishna or it can take you away from Krishna. So don't treat these senses with aversion because we keep hearing senses, sense objects, not surrender. So you shouldn't treat it with aversion, saying, I will never surrender to my senses. This is a bad thing. No, that it's not bad. Just like a knife in the hand of a doctor is never not bad nor good. The doctor can save a patient with the same knife, while in the hand of a murderer, it is very troublesome. But the knife itself is not good nor bad, right? Similarly, our senses, it's not good nor bad, right? It's there to serve you. However you feel it needs to serve you, it serve you. But at the same time, what should be avoided is surrender to material senses, right? But the senses itself is not bad. So there's no point in being outwardly attached or showing aversion, raga or dvesha, both is bad. So showing too much attachment or too much hatred, both is bad. So Krishna is explaining how karma must be performed here. Okay, he's also saying without attachment and without aversion to do the task, but must be done because it is what the Shastras are telling us. The prescribed duty should be done because it's prescribed, told in the Shastras. It's not that, this task will not give me any enjoyment, so I'll not do it. So we shouldn't have that kind of aversion to performing prescribed duties also. So it should be done because it's the right thing to do. Sometimes while chanting the holy name or chanting on the beats, people might say, today my chanting was so good. I feel some internal cleansing, some satisfaction, some bliss. I wish every day was like this chanting. Then I'll be able to chant very nicely. And some other days you'll feel, what is this? I can't chant today. I don't have time. My whole day is so busy in that I have to take 2 hours to chant and finish chanting. I don't have time for breathing here. What will I chant for 2 hours? So the first thing, extreme attachment to after effects of chanting, like removing sins, bliss, that is attachment. And the second, saying, I don't have time, I don't have thing, that is aversion. So both must be avoided. Chanting must be done because it's the right thing to do, right? The side effects, after effects, or pre effects of chanting does not matter. It should be done because it should be the right thing to do. Similarly, when you go to temples and make a donation, okay, the mood of accepting the donation is also important. right? Sometimes people are overly attached to money. Even in temples it happens, right? When people accept money, they say now we'll be able to serve Krishna very nicely because we have the money. Does that mean if there was no money, we'll treat Krishna any lesser? No, whatever we have, we'll give the best resources to Krishna, even if there was no money, right? So money itself is not uh, is good or bad. It's the mood in which we are serving Krishna, right? So if you constantly have this attachment and aversion kind of mood, then your way of serving the Lord will also be affected. So Krishna is saying, stop being overly attached or showing any kind of aversion to even material things. It does not mean, because material things also can be used in a conducive way to serve Krishna, or in it can take you away from Krishna. So the object itself is not wrong. The mood in which you're serving or using that object, that is what makes it good or bad, right? um, let's read here. Give me a second. Can someone read from here?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Unrestricted sense enjoyment is the cause of material engagement. But one who follows the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures does not become entangled by the sense objects. For example, sex enjoyment is a necessity for the conditioned soul, and sex enjoyment is allowed under the license of marriage ties.
Continue, Mataji.
According to the scriptural injunctions, one is forbidden to engage in sex relationship with any woman other than one's wife. All other women are to be considered as one's mother. But in spite of such injunctions, a man is still inclined to have sex relationship with other women. These propensities are to be curbed. Otherwise, they will be stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. As long as the material body is there, necessities of the material body are allowed, but under rules and regulations, and yet we should not rely upon the control of such allowances. One has to follow those rules and regulations and attach to them, because practice of sense gratification under regulations may also lead one to go astray, as much as there is always a chance of an accident even on the royal roads. Although they may be very carefully maintained, no one can guarantee that there will be no danger even on the safest road. The sense enjoyment spirit has been current a very long time owing to material association. Therefore, in spite of regulated sense enjoyment, there is every chance of falling down. Therefore, any attachment for regulated sense enjoyment must also be avoided by all means. But attachment to Krishna consciousness or acting always in the loving service of Krishna detaches one from all kinds of sensory activities. Therefore, no one should try to be detached from Krishna consciousness at any stage of life. The whole purpose of detachment from all kinds of sense attachment is ultimately to become situated on the platform of Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you,
Mataji. Thank
Mataji.
you.
So Krishna is concluding that we at all times should act without any kind of attachment and detachment, and all our senses should be engaged in Krishna consciousness, and that's a good way to control our mind as well. Let's read verse 35.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Text 35. Shriyan swadharmo vigunha param dharmat swa anushchitat swadharme nidhanam shreya paradharmo bhayavaha. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than others' duty perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties. For to follow another's path is dangerous. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
This verse is very instructive in the sense that it gives an idea of how to perform our material duties. It's saying that one should perform their own duties better than engaging in other duties, for the following the other's path is dangerous. Now, this is talking about Varnashrama Dharma, the duties of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and how one should engage in their own duties. Now, what is the duty of a Brahmana to do? Patan Patan Yajan Yajan. So they don't work with a desire of money. Their intent of doing Patan Patan Yajan Yajan is to understand the scriptures and pass on this knowledge to others. So they can't work with the desire of money. Even if you give them a lot of money, they can't work with that, right? Similarly, if a brahmana is given a vaishya job of a merchant, you'll see that their business will run into loss very quickly, because they cannot be tight-fisted about money, because brahmana cannot think like that. So they cannot engage their mind constantly about how to earn money, how to maintain business. That kind of mentality doesn't come naturally to a brahmana. Similarly, a kshatriya, he's meant to fight. He's meant to do administrative duties, supposed to protect people. He's a natural leader. Now tell him to do a shudra duty of serving another person, be menial, and be submissive. He cannot operate that way. Right. Similarly, a Vaishya, he cannot, or a Shudra, he cannot spend time reading scriptures or protecting others, because his main duty is to run business, or take care of the cows and brahmanas that way. But he cannot cannot take time, because he cannot have that kind of dedication to read scriptures and understand it. So one should do their own duties and not do duties that is supposed to be done by somebody else. The biggest calamity of Kali Yuga is we are filled with Shudras, and all Shudras are trying to do duties of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, and a Vaishya. You can see politicians. A Shudra politician will never give up his position, even though they cannot do their duties. And from there comes corruption, bribery, murder, and all these bad names that politicians have today, because they are all Shudras doing duties of the Kshatriya. A Kshatriya can give up their position, fame, name. You can see many examples like this. Dhritarashtra, Yudhishthira, all of them just gave up their kingdom just like that, because they had managed to find a new successor. They had trained the successor, and the right time came. They just gave up all attachment to the throne and all the richness. They gave up their kingdom. That's how a Kshatriya operates. But a politician of a modern age, even for a meager chair, they keep fighting for years till death, because actually these people are Shudras in nature, right? They don't have the quality of a Kshatriya. So it's better then that one performs their duty as per their varna, than trying to do others' duties, because whatever the results are, the failure, destruction when performing one's duty is better than engaging in others' duty. However, in Kali Yuga, it's also true that we cannot have a true Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra because of Varna Sankara, right? Back in the days, people used to do something called as Garbhadana Samskara. So even before the child is conceived, certain deities or the certain forms of Vishnus are prayed to, so that the child who is born has certain qualities in it. Like if they are looking for a Kshatriya son, then they'll pray to a certain form of Vishnu, so that the qualities of a Kshatriya are imbibed within the womb, right? And even as the womb is growing within, there are certain prayers to be chanted, certain things to be done, certain activities to be done, and after birth as well, because the child is now under the direct protection of their fathers and family members who are already working as Kshatriyas or Brahmanas. They are very organically, brought into the culture of whichever family line they're brought into. This is where Garbhadana Samskara is very important. But unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, nobody does Garbhadana Samskara, right? Garbhadana Samskara were done for Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishya back in the days. Only Shudras would not do Garbhadana Samskara. But today, since nobody does Garbhadana Samskara, then everyone in Kali Yuga is ideally a Shudra. Right. And in that case, most of the other qualities like Brahmana, Kshatriya, they all come in bits and pieces. Like sometimes we can behave in Sattva Guna, sometimes we can behave in Raja Guna, but sometimes we can do in Tama Guna. So these qualities can appear in a Shudra at any time as well. But the prominent quality of Sattva Guna, Shuddha Sattva, or Shuddha Rajoguna, that is not prominent now, because we don't have Shuddha Brahmana or Shuddha Kshatriya or Shuddha Vaishya. like that in Kali Yuga. So that's why most of us are in Kali Yuga. We can assume that all of us are Shudras. But also, like we discussed in the last class, the important quality of a Shudra is to serve. And being a devotee of Krishna, that's the only quality we need to serve Krishna and to serve devotees. So even if we are Shudras, if we are qualified and we are serving Krishna constantly, then just by that activity, we can attain perfection, right? So let's read verse 36.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, sir. अर्जुन उवाच अथ केन प्रयुक्तोऽयं पापं चरति पूरुषः अनिच्छन्नपि वार्ष्णेय बलादीव नियोजितः. Translation. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force?
Read the purport as well, Mataji.
Okay. Purport. A living entity as part and parcel of the Supreme is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all.
I lost Mataji there. A living entity as part and parcel of the Supreme is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contamination. Therefore, by nature, he is not subjected to the sins of the material world. And when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is sanguine as to the perverted nature of the living entities. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not, however, impelled by the super soul within, but are due to other cause, as this Lord explains in the next verse. So Arjuna's question is very to the point. Why are we doing these sinful activities, Krishna, in that case? If sinful actions are happening and taking us away from Krishna, then why are we acting in the three modes of material nature and creating more sins? So Arjuna is in turn asking about the perverted nature of being sinful and is asking, why is this happening? Okay, let's read verse 37.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Bhagavanuvach काम एष क्रोध एष रजो गुणसमुद्भवः महाशनो महापाप्मा विद्धये नमिह वैरिणम्. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said it is lust, only Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Right. So Krishna is telling the reason for all these sinful activities, nothing other than lust. Lust is the cause of all sinful action, and it's coming from the mode of passion, right? Passion means aggressive desire to achieve material desires, and that aggressive desire is what takes us to lust. Lust can be sexual lust, it could be over endeavor to get material things, whatever it is. Anything where you feel that you're getting addicted to certain material aspects. Sometimes even tea and coffee can be very addictive, right? Or certain things that you do every day in your life suddenly becomes very addictive. What is that? What is that that's giving you that addiction? This is lust, because over desire, over endeavor, that is all lust. So Arjuna is asking, what is it? Where is this desire to do sinful activities coming from? Who is the instigator? So all sins are coming from our previous lives. We can understand that. So whatever sins we are reactions that we are facing today, the sins are already happened in a previous life, or some sins could be done in this current life as well. So if one has tried to control your senses in the previous life, right, and then those impressions of will carry forward in this current life, and we'll find that controlling our senses is much easier this life, because you've already started trying to control your senses from the previous lives as well. But in the same way, if you have engaged a lot in sinful activity, your senses are engaged in sinful activities in your previous life, then there's a high tendency to continue performing sinful activities in this life as well. But what instigates these sinful activities in modern world, you can see, this debate constantly going on. Some say that, why women are raped on the road because of the kind of dresses they wear, right? And then a feminist will say, how can you blame the woman and their clothes? It's the lust or the greed is in the eye of the onseer, right? So this debate of who's right and who's wrong will keep going on. In this verse, Krishna is saying lust is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transforms to wrath and anger. And wrath is the all devouring sinful enemy of the world. So in chapter 2, we read about this 8 stages of fall down. When you constantly, the mind is uncontrolled mind is constantly contemplating on some sense objects, how the mind, uncontrolled mind, then comes from contemplation comes lust, and then lust comes anger. Right? So the same thing is explained in this verse as well, because from lust comes wrath. Wrath is anger, and from wrath, anger, comes the all devouring sinful enemy of the world, which is lust. Let's read this purport. Read
Yes,
from
Mother.
here.
From the beginning, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Uh, When a living entity comes in contact with a material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or, in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then, again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only includes which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world.
You can
Wrath is
stop
the
there, Mataji.
yes,
So
Hare Krishna
this
Mataji.
this is saying that when we misuse that minute independence given to us, then this natural tendency that we have to serve the Lord, it then gets converted to sense enjoyment, right? And that is why the material world is perverted. In the spiritual world, we'll try to serve Krishna, but in material world, we'll try to serve ourselves, which is why material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual sky, right? And when sense enjoyment increases, lust increases. Um, Continue reading here, Mataji.
Uh, the supreme personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever increasing spiritual bliss, and the living entities are parts and parcels of the spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. And when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
You can continue reading the last paragraph as well. It's a
Okay.
very important purport.
This inquiry is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutras, wherein it is said, Atato Brahma Jignasa, one should inquire into the Supreme. And the Supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmadi Asya Yaton Vyad Itaratas Cha, or the origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust is also in the Supreme. If therefore lust is transformed into love for the Supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Rama, exhibited his wrath by burning the golden city of Ravana, but by doing so he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. Hare Krishna
Hmm.
Mataji.
So, if you remember this lust, it's a very nice analogy that lust is like a very cruel, merciless master, right? We also know that while we are serving lust, that eventually this will lead to our downfall. But we are shamelessly serving the lust, knowing that this will lead to our downfall, because we want that intense sense gratification that says, if I do this, this sense object is so important to me that I must do this thing. And so, though we know that we'll put into shameful situation by serving lust, we continue serving lust. So, shamelessly, we serve the lust, and then lust keeps on taking us further down. Right. So, a devotee must start asking these questions: why am I serving lust? Um, what is the need to serve lust, and where does this lust originate from? So, this lust originally is originating from Krishna himself. Lust can be transformed into love of Krishna in its pure form, right? Or in its perverted form, then it becomes our love for material existence, right? So lust can also be used to serve Lord, or if we choose to serve ourselves, then it takes us further down, right? So that's how we understand the position of lust as well. Let's read verse 38.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Bhagavad Gita 3.38 Dhumena vriyate vehanir yatha darsho malena cha yathol abrato garbhas tatha tene damavratam. Translation: as fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. Hare Krishna.
So all of us are covered with different degrees of lust. Now, what are the different degrees of lust? The first degree is like the fire is covered with smoke. If a fire is covered with smoke, we can still feel the heat, right? We can still feel the light, we can still feel the heat, and with a little effort to blow the smoke, the fire will be exposed, right? So that is the first degree of lust that can be easily removed. Now, the second degree of lust is when like the dust on a mirror, right? When the mirror is covered with a thick layer of dust, the mirror cannot serve its purpose, right? So some manual effort should be made to clean the dust, and only then we can see our own self, right? So that is the second degree of cover of lust. Now, the third degree of cover of lust is like the embryo is within the womb. Now, to an external person, the baby within the womb is never visible. It's covered with a thick layer of wall. There's no light that can penetrate it. No air can individually penetrate the womb. The baby is completely dependent on what the mother is doing. If the mother sits, the baby sits, right? If the mother is eating, the baby is eating. And so the baby has no independent consciousness, just like a tree, right? So you chop the tree won't resist. The tree is also a living being, but it has very little consciousness. One second. Okay, so the tree are also living beings, but they have been put in a condition of life by which such a great exhibition of lust that they are almost void of all kind of consciousness. The covered mirror is compared to birds and insects, right? While the smoke covered with fire is like a human being, right? So there's different. So example of smoke covered with fire is like a human being. So it's easy to bring a human being to take them from the cover of lust and bring them back to Krishna consciousness. While the second example is that of the beasts and birds and bees, like the dust covered on mirror. So a little more effort. It's not that easy to get birds and insects back to Krishna consciousness. A little more effort is needed. They have a little higher consciousness than a tree, but their consciousness is not awake as much as that of a human being. So a little more effort is needed to take them out from the coverage of lust. Then the final example of that of an embryo is like the example is that of a tree. So a tree, it's impossible to get the tree from the a person like that whose lust is as intense as that. It's impossible to get that from the cover of lust, at least with your own personal effort. So blessings of a guru acharya is very much needed in that situation. But for that case, these are the three degrees of the cover of lust that we need to understand. Let's go to verse 39.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Text 39. आवृतं ज्ञानमेतेन ज्ञानिनो नित्यवैरिणा कामरूपेण कौन्तेय दुष्पूरेणान्लेन च. Translation: Thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. Hare
The
Krishna.
lust is never satisfied. So whatever you do, you try to, satisfy this one lust. Then there are 10 new desires coming up. So how many times will you try satisfying the lust? Because the lust can never be satisfied. So satisfying lust is like adding ghee to fire, right? The fire only grows more bigger. Um, Mataji, if you can read here.
Yes, Mataji. It is said in the Manusmriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex, and thus this material world is called Maithunya Agara, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of a living entity. Therefore, this lust is a symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually, that so called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. Hare
Hmm.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So there's no satisfying lust. Let's read verse 40.
इन्द्रियाणि मनोबुद्धिर् अस्याधिष्ठानमुच्यते इतेर्विमोहयते षा ज्ञानम् आवृत्य देहिनम्. The senses, the mind, and the intelligent are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Hare
So
Krishna.
there are three places where the lust sits: your senses, your mind, and intelligence. And any of these places your lust is inhabited, the other two will get affected as well. How does this work? So the sense, when one thinks like, let's take an example. Like, for example, you know that drinking alcohol is wrong, right? So where does that intelligence comes, that knowledge that alcohol drinking is wrong comes from? From your intelligence. And then when your intelligence is convinced, then your mind makes a determination then that I will not drink henceforth. And then your senses follow through. They'll not be attracted to any alcohol as such. So when your intelligence is strong, your mind follows and your senses follow, right? But other way around, similarly, if you look at let's say we use all our intelligence to convince ourselves that I need to go watch this movie on Sunday, right? Or I need to enjoy, I do need to do something fun on Saturday night. So then what happens if your intelligence is convinced that this is what you want to do? Then your mind makes a determination. It tells you that, yes, this is how you need to enjoy, who you need to enjoy with, how, this is what you need to do. So the determination comes from the mind. So, and then your senses will follow. So your intelligence gives you nischaya, determination, and intelligence gives you the what is that, the knowledge that this is the right thing or the bad thing to do, and your mind gives you the determination to do it. Okay, so intelligence is strong, then your mind follows. If your mind is strong, then your senses follow. But if the other way around, right, if your senses are slave to sense objects, then your mind becomes slave to the senses, right? And then your intelligence becomes slave to the mind. And then because of this, the intelligence, instead of guiding you away from sense objects, then it will give you the intelligence required to support your sense objects. So this way, depending on how your intelligence is convinced, you will act according to that. Okay, so these three places, senses, mind, and intelligence, is where your lust is sitting. Let's read verse 41.
Mataji, Harsh Prabhu is not on the call.
Okay, anyone who's not assigned a verse today? Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Mataji.
Text 41. Tasmat tva indriyanyadho niyamya paratashabha papmanam prajahihenam jnana vijnanam nasanam. Translation. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curved this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. Purport.
No. So the lust is a destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. And only by regulating the senses can this lust be controlled. That is the meaning of this purport. Um, one second. Read here, Mataji.
Lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. Nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So, from any stage of life or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord, and turn the lust into love of God, the highest perfectional stage of human life.
So this lust can be controlled only by focusing our senses and controlling our senses. And sense control is possible only when you engage your senses in Krishna consciousness. Verse 42.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Indriyani parani ahur indriyebhya param manah manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. Translation. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Hare Krishna Mataji.
So the sequence of the importance of intelligence, mind, senses, and dull object. Dull objects are matter that your body is made of, right? So better than dull matter, which is made from the panchabhuta, is your senses. Higher than senses is your mind. Higher than mind is your intelligence, and higher than intelligence is the paramatma, or the soul within. Okay, so we should understand then how is it possible, how to curtail this lust. If this question is still there with you, we should understand that this soul, the jivatma within us, is part and parcel of Krishna, right? Something that is part and parcel of Krishna, how can it be a slave of lust? Krishna is so strong, powerful. So how can something that is part of parcel of Krishna be uh, be a slave of lust? Right? So this lust is able to overcome us because we forget about a position of our soul. We forget that soul is coming as parcel of Krishna. We are thinking that we are independent of Krishna, and which is why lust is able to overcome us. But if this remembrance, this knowledge comes back to us that this we are part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is the very powerful. If if you want to know how strong a person is, you need to know how strong the person standing behind the person is. And Krishna is the person standing behind us and protecting us. So if we are aware that we are jivatma, we are part and parcel of Krishna, then we should also know that lust cannot overcome us. Right? But if you think that I am my own master, there's no master ahead of us, then lust can easily overcome us. So with that understanding, we should try to overcome lust. Give me a second. Read here, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji. Uh, with intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. A neophyte spiritualist is generally advised to keep aloof from the objects of the senses. But aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one's mind in Krishna consciousness by complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind becomes stronger. And even though the senses are very strong, like serpents, they will be no more effective than serpents with broken fangs. But even though the soul is the master of intelligence and mind, and the senses also, still, unless it is strengthened by association with Krishna in Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to the agitated mind.
Mhm.
Hare Krishna.
So, your mind senses can be strengthened only in the association of Krishna, and in being in association of Krishna conscious devotees. And otherwise, there's still a possibility of a fallen mind, just like Bharat Maharaj. He had reached up to the stage of bhava, or in the level of bhakti. Above bhava is bhakti, right? But he had almost reached the highest level of bhakti, but still he fell down because of his mind. Because mind can fall down any time if the senses are not in control. So that is why, if your senses are not constantly serving Krishna, then there's a danger of it getting agitated, the mind getting agitated and falling down. Let's read the last verse for chapter 3.
Annapurna Mataji.
Nirajaksha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hello?
We can hear you, Mataji. Go ahead.
Yes, Mataji. Evam buddhe param bhutva samsthabhyatmanam atmana jahe shatrum mahabaho kamarupam durasadam. Translation. Thus knowing one's mind and intelligence,
We are not able to hear you,
O mighty
Mataji.
armed Arjuna,
Start from beginning.
one should spiritual Krishna consciousness. Okay, Mataji. From the shloka.
No,
or
translation.
translation.
Okay, let me do that, Mataji. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna
Mataji.
consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So, only by engaging our senses in Krishna consciousness, here Krishna is saying, steady the mind with deliberate spiritual intelligence, Atmana, and use these words that I have spoken to conquer this insatiable enemy called as lust. Okay, and if further in the purport, let me quickly pull it up. So the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita is conclusively directive to Krishna consciousness by knowing oneself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and without considering impersonal voidness, the ultimate end. In the material existence of life, one is certainly influenced by propensities for lust and desire for dominating the resources of material nature. Desire for overlording and for sense gratification is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. But by the strength of Krishna consciousness, one can control the material senses, the mind, and the intelligence. One may not give up work and prescribed duties all of a sudden, but by gradual developing Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in the transcendental position without being influenced by the material senses and the mind, and by steady intelligence directed towards one's pure identity. This is a sum total of this chapter. In the immature stage of material existence, philosophical speculations and artificial attempts to control the senses by the so-called practice of yogic postures can never help a man towards spiritual life. He must be trained in Krishna consciousness by higher intelligence. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the third chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of karma yoga, or the discharge of one's prescribed duty in Krishna consciousness. So Krishna, in other words, in Karma Yoga chapter is saying, do your prescribed duties. Okay. And after doing your prescribed duties, if you reach a stage of self-realization by the following the path of Karma Yoga, then you are in the stage of Bhakti Yoga itself. Okay. So doing your duties for Krishna, in the love for Krishna, is a way to get Krishna Prema Bhakti. Okay, so that's how we conclude the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Are there any questions on the third chapter or anything that we discussed here? Okay. Since we have completed the third chapter, I will send you the quiz for chapter 3 by end of day today. So you'll have 5 days till Monday next week. So please use the weekend nicely and complete your quizzes on time. Don't wait for the last 5th day on Monday to complete your quiz. Try to be timely. And if there are anybody who have, for whatever reasons, not completed their chapter 2 quizzes, use this time till Monday and send me all the pending quizzes. Okay. And please remember, from next week onwards, I will be taking a break, not break, but I will be not conducting the Bhakti Shastri classes because I'm taking on a new role in Belgaum Gurukul. So Sri Hari Prabhu will be taking over Bhakti Shastri classes from Monday. We will be doing a Bhakti Vriksha class. I'll come for that one specific class. Please bear with me for that. But after that, both Srimad Bhagavatam reading as well as Gita Gyan classes will be conducted by Sri Hari Prabhu. Okay. I'll be around till next week if you have any questions on chapter 3. And after that, Sri Hari Prabhu will pick up from there. Okay. So try to be on time with your quizzes. I'll accumulate all the quiz results, attendance, whatever reports I have, I'll pass it on to Sri Hari Prabhu and he'll manage it from there after that. Okay. Jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnebhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Dandavat.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji.
Dandavat.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna
Mataji,
Mataji, Dhanavad.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Mataji,
Krishna,
Dandavat
Mataji.
Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna Mataji,
Hare
Dandavat
Krishna,
Pranam. Thank you
Mataji,
very much.
Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I just wanted to know, you'll come back after some time, or Sri Hari Prabhu will continue with the classes?
He most likely will continue to the classes, but for next 2 months for sure, I can't participate in any of the online classes because I'll be a little remote, no internet. But if he is finding challenges after 2 months and if he needs further support after August, I might come back for a short period of time till he figures a backup. So we'll figure it out at that point. If he finds a backup teacher by then the new person might take over.
Okay,
Okay.
Mataji. Your class. I shall miss you a lot, Mataji. That's
Same here, Mataji.
We are
Preeti
missing
Mati,
Mataji.
just a request. The next Bhakti step is happening in July. I don't know the exact date when. So our Bhagavad Gita chapter 3 reading, Krishna Sevaka reading till Science of Self-Realization included should be completed by July.
July, end of July.
Yes, I don't know the date, Mataji. You may have to check with Sri Hari Prabhu or Prema Mai Mataji directly as well.
Okay, Mataji.
Okay, but yeah, sometime in July is what I understand, but I don't know the exact date. So a reminder to the rest of you as well, if you're aspiring for Krishna Sevaka, which is which means you're already doing 4 rounds of daily chanting, and you have read these books. What are the books, Mataji? Bhagavad Gita till chapter 3, and Science of Self-Realization, and which is the other one?
beyond birth and death. That is, we have
Yeah.
completed that, Mataji.
Yes. In your class, you have completed, but for the rest who are not attending Premamai Mataji's reading classes on Friday, if you have time to read these books on your own, please start reading and complete these books before the beginning of July. So you have time for that. Jai. Thank you, Mataji.
Jai Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
To
Mataji.
all devotees assembled here.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.